This is part 4 of the video providing an orientation to coded segments, covering 2 other ways of interrogating coded segments, the typology table and the configuration table. Configuration tables are another mixed methods analytic tool, and they display the frequency with which combinations of activated codes appear within documents. This time we're looking at an analysis of unstructured narratives written by volunteer writers in the UK to sets of open-ended questions posed by the Mass Observation Archive. In this illustration I'm focusing on the Your Lifeline directive, which asked writers to provide a timeline of meaningful events in their lives. As you can see, the coding scheme is fairly extensive, but there's one group of codes stored under agency types which capture where writers express agency or passivity in relation to themselves as individuals and society at large. So we coded evidence for individual agency and passivity and social agency and passivity at the 4 codes. And you can see what these were defined as when I hold my cursor over the memos. In addition, you can see there are codes that capture where volunteers' writing appears to evidence a change in individual or social agency. What we wanted to do was to interrogate and visualise patterns in how these codes had been used in relation to one another, as a way of informing further analysis of these concepts. For example, we wanted to be able to consider whether and how writers transition between agency types, and the configuration table allowed us to do this. So I'm just going to activate the set of documents we were focusing on during this phase of the project. And that's this set here, phase 3. And then I'll open up the configuration table from the Mixed Methods menu. You'll see that I've already chosen the 6 codes relating to individual and social agency and passivity, and MAXQDA has by default ticked the options for focusing on only activated documents. So I'll just click OK. I get 2 tables. First, the summary table displays all the possible combinations of the codes and provides frequency and percentage information about the documents that contain each possible combination. We're not counting coded segments here, but the number of documents that contain any combination of codes. So, for example, we can see that there are 13 documents that contain both the individual agency evidence code and the social agency evidence code. There are 5 documents that contain the individual passivity evidence code and the social passivity evidence code. And there's 1 document that contains all the codes we asked for. In addition, there are 38 documents that don't contain any of the codes that we asked for. In the usual way, I can sort the table by any column header. I can export the table. And I can also ask to see the information in a chart. Before I do that, I'll just select the rows that I'm interested in, and then click on the chart icon here, and you can see the graph. We cover charts in more detail in the video on that component, but all the usual options for changing the display of this chart are available at the top. In this project, the configuration table was helpful to get an overview of the extent to which we had found evidence for agency and passivity in the data. For example, seeing that there were 38 documents where none of these codes occurred led us to revisit these documents to check we hadn't missed anything. In addition, the configuration table shows us that there were many documents in which writers had been coded as expressing both agency and passivity in either the individual or social dimension. The detail view of the configuration provides the breakdown of this information by document. And this table also allows us to access the coded segments. So here we now have 1 row per activated document, with the codes in the columns as before, and we can see the combination of codes per document. So I'm just going to sort this by the sum column and just show you how we can access coded segments. I'll move everything out of the way because I want to be able to see my Retrieve Segments window in the background. This first document, for example, has all the codes contained within it. And if we double click on it, it retrieves in the Retrieve Segments window all the coded segments at any of the codes that we asked for. And in this way, we reviewed the coded segments in order to move our thinking on about agency and passivity codes in relation to the individual and social dimension. As you read in Chapter 5, typology tables are designed to facilitate the exploration of qualitative typologies. They show the frequency and percentage information about types of respondents that are captured as variable values. Typology tables are therefore ways of comparing groups and are integrated with coded segments. I'll show you one example in this project. I've activated the survey document group to focus this interrogation on the 191 survey respondents documents, to which several variable values have been linked. When choosing the typology table from the Mixed Methods menu, we first have to choose which variable values to display in the rows of the table. This list shows all variable values across the whole project, not just those applied to the documents I activated. And when I scroll down, you can see that I've chosen the 5 variable values that capture the current employment status of survey respondents. Next, I have to choose the variable values to display in the columns of the typology table. And you can see that I've chosen to consider employment status in relation to the region in which respondents live, either urban or rural. At the bottom of this window, you'll see that because I activated the survey document group, MAXQDA is by default going to focus the typology table on these activated documents, although I could change my mind at this point by taking the tick out of here. I won't do that, but I'll click OK to generate the typology table. I'm first going to click these 2 buttons to more easily see the low and high values. This first button highlights in red the lowest value per row, and the next button highlights in green the highest value per row. In the first instance, this is showing us a breakdown of the sample in terms of the number and percentage of each employment status in each region. But each intersection in the table is linked to coded segments if we also choose to activate codes. So I'll just activate one code, Jobs Lost, under the Responses to Question 2 code. First of all, the Retrieve Segments window is showing all coded segments amongst all survey respondents. I can see that by looking at the status bar at the bottom. There are 191 documents, 1 code, and 42 coded segments. But when I double-click on, for example, the 34 respondents who are employed and living in a rural area, you'll see that the Retrieve Segment window changes to show me just the coded segments amongst jobs lost for this group of respondents. And again, I can see that in the status bar, 34 documents, 1 code and 9 coded segments. In this example, I created a typology table based on 2 sets of variable values that capture socio-demographic characteristics of the respondents. But you'll know from Chapter 5 and the video on codes that it's also possible to transform codes into variables, and in this way it would be possible to integrate qualitative coding into a typology table as well as to retrieve coded segments from it.